Well, hello people, and welcome back to Jed Skeptic Media. This is a wee late night video. The house is quiet. I just want to make you aware of this video. I don't think a lot of people have seen it because it's on a channel called Going Underground, an RT. And back in the day, I used to watch RT because RT seemed like the only news station that was a little bit objective, especially during the Scottish referendum, whilst the BBC was distorting the public view, STV, all the media. RT seemed to be the channel that was standing outside the rest of them, trying to give you an objective view. But nowadays it's just turned into a really aggressive left-wing kind of programme. It's irritating to watch nowadays, so I don't really watch it. But I did catch Ashton Rajansi's interview with Jordan Peterson here. And this is when the penny dropped, guys, for me with Jordan Peterson. I used to support the guy early on when he got kicked out of his job at Canadian University because he wasn't using the right plurals. I thought he was on a crusade, a just crusade. But it's now turned into this big money-making scheme. It's always the same. And he's turned into this guru type, and he sits there with this monotone voice. Yes, well, listen to me. I am Jordan Peterson, and you will pay me for 12 rules. This 12 rules book. Tidy your room. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. His book's something like your common sense things your granny tells you. So the guy, to me, now is becoming this bandwagon guru type character that a lot of young disenfranchised white males are now hopping on the bandwagon. And this is what I think these governments are doing nowadays. They're creating these characters and they're putting them up on pedestals and then they'll shoot them back down again with some kind of scandal. I think that's what's going to happen with Trump, to be honest with you. I think they're going to create this big bandwagon on him and then catch him with something scandalous and make everyone wish they hadn't voted him and feel stupid. They've done it already in Scotland. It's demoralise a nation. And I think they'll do it with the Trump and demoralise a demograph as well with Jordan Peterson. But he's not going to do it to me. All these agendas to me are actually makes me hopeful because they aren't putting young white guys on a pedestal. I'd be worried if they were. If we were up there beside the transgenders and the vegans and the all these other agendas that's getting rammed in our throats, I'd be worried if the young, strong white male was getting pushed in our faces. So this whole attack against us is a good sign for me, I think. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to Mr. Peterson. And this interview here is when the penny drops. The guy's either emotionally unstable or he's very clever trying to use the waterworks, the emotions to try and bend around the questions. Anyway, guys, without further ado, I'll let you listen to this.
On the right. And I believe that that's the most likely outcome, even though we're in very polarized times at the moment.
Now, I know you quoted Winston Churchill and you like doing it. Obviously, for many people around the world, he's considered to be a mass murderer. Even in Ireland, he set up the Black and Tans in the Bengal famine. And
this is another strategy the left uses against anybody that stands for like European values or colonialism or these things. The left always uses Winston Churchill. They always bring up these characters from the past. Didn't you like Winston Churchill's saying or something like that? They always start the question off with some left wing kind of angle. And Churchill has been one that's been brought up lately by the left wing. He's a Nazi. All this rubbish statements. Anyway,
and so forth. You are an honorary member, as regards colonialism, of the Kwaka Waka Wako tribe in British Columbia. Tell me about that tribe and why you're an honorary member of it, and how whether you're in the fight for the return of art looted by colonialism in British Columbia.
There we go again. You support of the return of looted art by the Waka Waka tribe. And fair enough, maybe they had their own form of art, totem poles and some kind of dress, I don't know. But was there really any big art movement with this tribe? The return of art, it doesn't make sense to me. Maybe there was certain things taken, but the return of art, it's like, it's entitlement. Here's the entitlement. Here's the give us stuff, you've taken from us. And they just start making things up. Dreamcatchers, for instance, Native American dreamcatchers were just a gimmick made up for the Westerners to buy.
Well, I would say I'm not part of the latter, but the reason that I'm associated with that tribe is because I started working with a native carver named Charles Joseph, who I regard as quite a genius, who was a survivor.
Watch as he does this monotone act, the head tilting side to side.
Of one of Canada's most brutal residential schools, and had a childhood that was so indescribably awful that, well, if you heard about it, it would bring you to tears. I've worked with Charles for 15 years.
Look at the state of this guy. This is meant to be a symbol of young white fighting against these agendas. Ugh, guys, come on. This guy is a snivelling loser. Like I said in my last streams, he's a snivelling loser. Getting on, can he not control himself? How many times has he spoken in front of large audiences? And what's going on here? Is this an act? Is this guy mentally stable? What the hell's going on with this person? This is when the pennies started to drop with me with Jordan Peterson. This charlatan, this fraud, snivelling, crying over an experience that his friend had, his friend's childhood memories. He's snivelling over his friend's childhood memories. If you heard the stories, you would cry. Get yourself a grip. Jesus, give yourself a shake, Jordan. You're an embarrassment. Step down. Step down.
Buying his art, and which I think is quite remarkable, and learning about his culture, and we've had a very successful.
Like I said, either he's avoiding the whole Churchill question that was thrown at him, because all through this interview, this is 25 minutes in, all through his interview, Ashton Rutansley uses this tactic. Every question he starts off with is like he throws a curveball at him, and then Jordan Peterson tries to damage control his way through it. And I think this has got to like the point where he's got him in tears, and he's just trying to use emotional blackmail just to keep Ashton Rutansley off his back. I don't know. Strange interview.
Collaboration, and as a consequence, I was invited to join his family in a ceremony in northern on Vancouver Island. There was a ceremony
on northern Vancouver Island
with about 500 people, a potlatch, which is a traditional Kwakwaka'wakw ceremony, and our relationship has been, I would say, primarily personal. You know, I've helped him with some of the consequences of his catastrophic childhood experiences, and being a supporter of his artistic endeavors. He built a 53-foot totem pole to let's say commemorate the residential school survivors that's now standing in the middle of Montreal, and that's had a certain amount of political impact in Canada. I mean, I'm an admirer of his ancient culture and of him in particular, and we've managed to bridge the huge cultural gap between us and our societies to formalize a lasting friendship. And
can I ask just finally then? I mean, I know Vancouver Island, and you presumably know the mass deforestation of that island off the coast of British Columbia.
There we go again. I know Vancouver. Mass deforestation is another left-wing curveball. You know what I mean?
how important is the environment, which is touted as the greatest threat to humankind, even greater than lack of psychological self-analysis, let alone lack of class awareness?
Well, I don't think it is more crucial than lack of psychological insight, because I think that societies that put themselves together properly will look to the long run, in the future long run, and they'll take the steps that are proper with regards to attempt.
Take the steps that are proper to work out. The guy is just a robot. And I remember he was coming to Edinburgh, and I thought, how much is that for a ticket? £80 to go and see this guy drivel on, drone on about his 12 rules of life. And this is disempowering men. To have to look up to somebody like this, it's a sad state of affairs that the world is in right now.
To make things sustainable, which is very difficult. I mean, all the news on the environmental front isn't bad. There are more forests in the Northern Hemisphere, for example, than there were 100 years ago. And there's more forests in China and India than there were 30 years ago. And, human beings have only been aware of the fundamental magnitude of their potential effect on the planet since about 1965.
I don't know, the Native Americans like those in British Columbia who made that totem pole, arguably.
Meaning, sorry, I'm not sure what your question.
I think they have quite a big knowledge of eschatology and the end of times.
Well, I was thinking about it from a more practical perspective, is that people didn't realize that we had the capacity to act as a planetary force until about 50 years ago. And I think that we're actually doing a reasonably commendable job of trying to clean up our act. And, people are, and this is, I think, all this, that there's a very powerful streak of anti-humanity that runs through the more radical end of the environmentalist movement.
That is true. I've got to see there's some things I can agree with Jordan Peterson, but for it to be propped up and pushed forward as the forerunner for young, disenfranchised white men, no. He needs to step. He's emotionally unstable, or he's at it. He's an actor.
It's reflected in ideas like that.
But they always do say good things to keep you roped in.
Human beings are like a cancer on the planet's surface, which I find an unbelievably repugnant idea. And I think that we're not doing so badly at trying to clean up the mess that we generate while we're struggling to survive. And it's not like the mess isn't real and that there aren't dangers associated with it, but my proclivity is to have some sympathy for people.
The bottom lip's going again. Sympathy for people. He's so overwhelmed with his emotions. These kind of people, this guy couldn't be a world leader, because you could convince this guy, flash a few photos at him, and that's it. Oh, nuke that country. Yeah, these people are driven by their emotions. And this is something that I'm sure Jordan Peterson probably teaches or writes in his books, that you can't let emotion get the best of your logic, and because you'll make irrational decisions. And this guy seems irrational.
As they do what they can to live under the harsh conditions that constitute the circumstances of our lives. And I think that we'll be wise enough to clean up our own nest. I think the evidence suggests that if you can get people in general above GDP of about $5,000 a year, they start to become quite concerned with their environmental conditions and to work diligently to try to make the circumstances in which they live sustainable in the long run. But in conditions of dire poverty and immediate day-to-day want, it's very difficult for people to attend to anything that might be remotely concerned with long-term environmental sustainability.
Well, there you have it, guys. Jordan Peterson, snivelling wreck. And you should swerve this person, this charlatan, this actor. Anyway, people, have a nice night, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.